Hello, my random viewers, and welcome to Randomly Offensive. I love making YouTube videos. I love creating content for YouTube because the benefits far outweigh the hard work that it takes to make these, because it pays you back in so many different ways, and one of those ways I never even expected, and I don't think a whole lot of YouTubers expect it, but one of the ways it pays me back is whenever I'm making content, I have to use examples from movies and video games that I used to have a deep love and passion for, and when I have to bring up certain characters in certain scenes, it rekindles that fire that went out so long ago, and it makes me passionate about what I once loved once again. And that is exactly what happened when I did my top 10 dumbest villains, and Heihachi ranked at number 1. And Heihachi from Tekken, now I slandered on this guy, but he really is an amazing character. And watching the gameplay to use for my content and just revisiting that character rekindled the flames and the fire for the passion that I had for Tekken. And one of the reasons why I had such a deep passion for that game and for that franchise was because it was the first game I'd ever played in my entire life. It was what started my love for video games. It was Tekken 3 for the PlayStation 1. I'll never forget when my dad bought the PlayStation 1 with to select 3 games. I was not allowed to touch it. Not allowed. And my sisters played Tekken 3 religiously. They played it constantly. They got incredibly good at it, and they finally let me play, and I actually almost beat them several times, and I thought I was very good for being 4 or 5 years old. Then I realized that the frickin' controller was unplugged. To all you older siblings out there, don't do this. Don't do this. Causes problems. You might invent a YouTuber, and I don't know if you want that kind of heat. So if your little sibling wants to play with you, just do the right thing and mop the floor with them, for real. Don't pretend to plug the controller and just tuck it underneath the PlayStation. That's not cool. Very disrespectful. Anyway, when I found out about this, I decided to go behind their backs and play for real. And I realized how horrible at the game I was, and this gave me drive to get better. Get just as good as the computer was, if not better, right? And I finally did achieve that. I became the best Tekken player in my family, in my household, and then I became the best Tekken player in my school and neighborhood, and in the real world, I could not find a worthy opponent for Tekken. Nobody was even worthy to lick the boots when I played Tekken. I was one of the best. I'm very proud of it. That's one of the reasons why I was so passionate about it. I think it was the only thing that I was good at that age and at that time, and because I dedicated so much time to it. And then online finally became a thing, and Tekken 6 incorporated online gameplay, and it opened up a whole new world for me, a whole new field. And unfortunately, I got to a point again to where nobody could beat me. No one was worthy. I was like Mjolnir. The only people that could handle me were the ones that were almost worthy, but just not quite. They could just move it a little bit, but in the end, they just could not pick up the weight of the godly glory that was before them. So, with that being said, and with me bragging, I eventually got bored because it was no longer challenging, so I stopped playing and forgot about all the passion and love that I had for the franchise. However, I do believe it's fair to say that I knew, and maybe even I still do. However, up until Tekken 7, I knew everything there was to know about the Tekken franchise. I knew everything about every single character on the roster. Every time they included a new character, I got so excited, and I had a new character to study. And I studied their lore, and I wanted to know what drove them to win, and the motivation to make them win, because I wanted to understand why I wanted to actually make these characters win in battle. Not only that, but I studied every single move that every single character on the roster had, and I was able to figure out statistically which character was more likely to beat another character. So I always knew the best character to pick, and I got good at playing at all of them. And I just fell in love with the game. Now, with that all being said, I want to delve into the lore and story of Heihachi, because he's one of the best characters, and I feel like he's the best character to kick this off. So, starting with my new series of making Tekken-based videos is Heihachi's storyline. Now, I know I'm throwing a lot of projects out there, and I got a lot going on. I got my Hype Zone series going on. I got my Top 10 series going on. I got my How to Do Characters Right series going on. And now I got Tekken going on. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to give you guys a variety of content. Since I'm putting out so much so quickly, I want to give you guys a variety. I don't want it to get repetitive, but that also allows me to be able to make these amount of videos much, much easier, because I already have all the notes, and I already have all the editing done. All I have to do is record, and it's fantastic. So, I've been rambling about non-topic things for almost 6 minutes, so let's hop in to what this video is about, which is Heihachi's storyline. Heihachi Mishima was born and raised in the Mishima Zaibatsu, and everything this guy did, his entire life, revolved around martial arts. He was born into martial arts, and it became a way of life, the only way of living. This guy ate and breathed martial arts, specifically karate, and his only goal in life was to become the strongest karate master in the entire world. Now, within his training, a young girl named Kazumi came into the dojo, and he was romantically attracted to her. And as the years gone on with them training together, they became romantically involved. And they ended up having a son named Kazuha Mishima. Now, their life seemed incredibly happy, and they had an amazing romantic life with a son, and this went on for 7 years. However, there was one day that Kazumi ended up getting sick, and taking care of Kazumi, the love of his life, she tried to kill him one day while having a fever. Now, he managed to defend himself and protect himself without bringing harm to his beloved wife. And when she woke up, she had no recollection of what she tried to do to Heihachi, and he just took it as a split personality issue. And this happened time and time again. However, one day, while he was meditating, she came into the dojo and tried to kill him once more. And after he managed to fend her off, she then revealed that the only reason she became romantically involved with him was because of a mission she was handed down by the Hajicho family. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but the Hajicho family sent her to kill Heihachi because it was prophesized that Heihachi would bring the end of the world. He would be the doom to planet Earth. And so her mission was to defeat him. And the Hachicho family had the devil genes that they handed down. And Kazumi, too, had the devil genes. And she revealed her devil form. After beating her and she begged for her life, she then transformed into the devil. And there was another epic battle. And he did end up having to be forced to snap her neck. And this created a huge issue with Heihachi. He was now in mourning, and he had to kill his wife in order to protect his own life. And he saw the pure power and fear and threat that the devil genes can create. And looking at his son, Kazuha Mishima, he realized that his son might too have the devil genes. So he took him out in a training regiment. So Kazuha did not suspect anything. Everything was perfectly normal. And then Heihachi ended up beating him to a pulp, trying to get the devil gene to come out. When the devil gene would not come out, he decided that his son either doesn't have it or he does have it. But the only way to find out was to push him to the verge of death. So he picked up Kazuha and threw him off the edge of a cliff. And he figured if he does not have the devil genes, he's dead. But it was worth it to see if that threat even existed. And if the threat did exist, then his son would not die. The devil gene would protect him. So he threw him off the edge of a cliff and presumed to kill his son. Now, the regret and the guilt that this man had to face by doing that, realizing that Kazuha did not have the devil genes, at least not at the time, and not that he thought of, he just killed his son for literally no reason after having to kill his wife. And so that was the beginning of Mishima and Heihachi Mishima. And so he began dedicating his life even more to just martial arts as a way of coping and getting away from his thoughts. And he and practice meditation to push literally everything out of his mind and only focus on karate. He then ended up joining multiple tournaments and was known as the King of the Iron Fist. As the years went on, Heihachi Mishima quickly became the head of the Mishima Financial Group, other words known as the MFG. And it quickly became the world's largest developer of military equipment. And Heihachi started hosting the Iron Fist tournaments because karate was his life, though this business was his pride and joy. So he started hosting these Iron Fist tournaments and quickly became a legend. And the purpose of these tournaments were to collect and gather the strongest people to turn them into soldiers. And the driving force of getting contenders and getting people to join the tournaments was that if you beat the champion, which was Heihachi Mishima, you got his title. You got to become the head of the Mishima Financial Group, and you were looking at a huge fortune, right? However, even if you lost, if you were found worthy enough, you got to become a soldier for Heihachi Mishima. So many people saw this as a win-win, and it was a way of him collecting the greatest fighters. Now, as the years went on, one day, and this is where Tekken 1 finally takes place, now that we're done with the origins, Kazuya Mishima finally shows up in an Iron Fist tournament. Now, Kazuya Mishima, he is recognizable instantly by Heihachi. It's his son, finally back for revenge. He survived, which means he has the devil genes. And this guy is thick, this guy's buff, and this guy is cold and heartless, and he's angry, and all he wants is a piece of Heihachi. And this guy's been training for years. For the past 17 years, he has been mastering the Mishima Zaibatsu karate style that was perfected by Heihachi. And so now you have Kazuya joining the group. Now, Heihachi has no intention on turning this guy into a soldier because he knows why he's there. He is there to kill Heihachi. So now you have the story plot thickening in one of the coolest freaking games to ever be made. Now, this is when you get some of the most iconic characters, right? And I will be leaving out the unlockable characters in Tekken 1 because they are not canon. And I'm sticking with the canon endings, the canon stories, and the canon characters. So, in this roster for the Iron Fist tournament, we have Kazuya, Jack, King, Law, Michelle, Nina, Paul, and Yoshimitsu. Now, of course, I will delve deeper into this tournament when I talk about those characters' stories. However, Heihachi did not fight in this tournament, and as an end result, Kazuya managed to barely survive this tournament, but he became the victor, and now he got to fight the champion as a reward against Heihachi. And this battle was intense. It took place in the middle of a forest, and Heihachi didn't even wait for the bell to go off. This guy charges in and just delivers the most massive headbutt directly to Heihachi's nose, snapping it. And Heihachi went sliding back, but smiles at the strength that his son is showing. The Mishima pride is there. And Kazuya is just throwing punches after punch after punch and kick after kick, smashing his kicks into Heihachi's side of the head and smashing his knees into Heihachi's gut and driving his fists into the cheeks and the nose in the middle of the face, into the gut, the chest, slamming his kicks into Heihachi's kneecaps and just destroying Heihachi. Blow after blow after blow, destroying Heihachi. And Heihachi's just standing there and taking it. And Kazuya finally stops to catch his breath, and Heihachi smiles and starts walking towards him. And Kazuya starts getting flashbacks of what he once saw as a kid, with Heihachi confidently walking towards him. And Heihachi gives him one solid blow and just knocks him down to the ground with one blow to the gut. And Kazuya manages to barely, struggle to get himself back up after one strike, and now it's Heihachi's turn, and Heihachi starts delivering just this endless onslaught of beatings and attacks on Kazuha and just starts slaughtering Kazuha. And Kazuha stands no chance against the pure might and strength of Heihachi Mishima. The legend, the king of the Iron Fist, is showing the world what he's capable of. And Kazuha finally starts glowing somewhat purple. He starts getting a purple aura around him, and the ground begins to crack and slightly shake. And now Heihachi realizes that the devil genes is beginning to show, with Kazuha fighting for his life. And now they start striking and fighting each other blow for blow, and they're perfectly even. And Heihachi manages to finally realize that he may lose this if he doesn't do something, and do something now. And so Heihachi manages to step around Kazuha and put him in a headlock and grasp the neck of Kazuha as tight as he could. And Heihachi squeezes and squeezes, trying to make his son, who intends to kill him, pass out. Now, Kazuha is afraid. He does not know that Heihachi doesn't plan to kill him, and he feels like his father is going to attempt to take away his life once again. And so, out of fear, he, struggling to breathe, raises his arm and delivers an elbow to Heihachi's gut. And he does it over and over and over again, striking Heihachi repeatedly. And he can hear and feel the blood coming out of Heihachi's mouth as his father grasps onto his neck to just stay alive. Kazuha, now beginning to not be able to breathe and his vision becoming blurry, decides to start walking towards a tree, pulling Heihachi along with him as he struggles to get oxygen into his lungs. He manages to reach a tree, and as he begins to black out, he steps up the tree and he walks up it, manages to flip around Heihachi, and as he flips around Heihachi, he delivers a massive sidekick to the back of Heihachi's head, smashing the front of his head against a tree, pinning Heihachi's skull between the tree and Kazuha's foot. As Kazuha lands, he delivers an elbow to the back of Heihachi's skull, again smashing the front of his skull against the tree, and he repeats this motion constantly and consistently as he remembers his father killing his mother, as he remembers his father ruthlessly beating him as a child and throwing him off a cliff. His elbow becomes a massive weight that is driving Heihachi to his death. And then finally, Kazuha manages to swing his arm into a karate chop and smashes Heihachi in the back of the neck, causing Heihachi to pass out and fall on the ground unconscious. Now, as Kazuha looks at the body, the just still, breathless body of his father, who is still alive, he is now debating whether or not he wants to kill Heihachi, but he realizes that is not the revenge that he wants. He wants Heihachi to wake up and realize that he lost to his son, that he lost everything. Kazuha's ultimate revenge is to take everything away from his father. Take the Mishima name. Take the head of being the MFG. Take his title. Take his job, take his money, and take his pride. And now Heihachi wakes up and has lost everything. This then kicks off the storyline of Tekken 2. Now, due to the non-canon characters in Tekken 1 creating a fan base and being recepted very well, a lot of them became canon in the sequel, along with brand new characters that were some canon and others not canon until Tekken 3. And this trend continues for the entirety of the Tekken franchise. Now, the characters that were not canon yet in Tekken 2 are Armor King, Kuma, P-Jack, Bruce, Roger, and Alex. So they will not be mentioned in this storyline. Also, I will not be mentioning all canon characters because not all canon characters are a part of Heihachi's story, but they will be mentioned upon future stories where they are involved, especially the ones that are about them. So, after the events of Tekken 1, Heihachi Mishima is suffering from his grief, from losing everything, losing his pride, losing his business, his company, losing his title, everything he had. So he decided to seclude himself in the forest so that he could continue his training and once again master the martial art of the Mishima Karate. Now he befriends a grizzly bear who will later be known as Kuma, and he uses a freaking grizzly bear as a sparring partner and starts just mastering his martial arts all over again, forgetting the business side of life and just focusing on karate. Then he gets wind that Kazuha is hosting another Iron Fist tournament, though he has no idea why and is not sure if the intentions are good or bad, and unaware or uncertain if he's just following in the steps of Heihachi or if there's something deeper there. But he decides to clean himself up and return to society with the intentions of participating and winning back his pride, title, and position, so that he can once again be the king of the Iron Fist. But of course, the king of the Iron Fist tournament, Heihachi, was accepted into the new Iron Fist tournament, who now has 16 contestants, including Heihachi himself, as they all stand waiting for the roster to be drawn to see who will be facing against who. Heihachi sees his second son, Lee, standing amongst the participants. He scoffs at this. Lee is an embarrassment to the Mishima name and is nothing when compared to his older brother Kazuha. He does not expect Lee to make it very far. And as he looks at the rest of the participants, he wonders how well he will do in this tournament, for he has not fought more than one match in a tournament in a very long time. However, he forces those thoughts out of his head. He is the king of the Iron Fist, and he will mop the floor with every single opponent that he has. This Iron Fist tournament takes place on an island with a volcano located in the center. Throughout this island, Heihachi stands there as his opponent waits for him, listening to all the sounds of the other fighters battling and putting everything they have into the fight at hand. While Ganru becomes impatient and charges at Heihachi, Heihachi stands there with his arms crossed, still listening to the battles going on around the island. He knows that there is more to winning a tournament than just the strength and power alone. You must first install fear in all future opponents, meaning the first match is the most important. You must come off like a titan. You must give the vision and the illusion that you are a god. And that is exactly what he does. When Ganru delivers the first strike, an open palm straight attack towards his face, Heihachi catches it with an returning open palm. As their hands clap together, Heihachi responds, "I did not ask for a high five," he says, as he delivers a right hook to Ganru's face, followed by a left hook, and then followed being that combo, he delivers a low roundhouse kick to Ganru's right knee. This drops the sumo giant. Heihachi looks at him. "Pathetic. You're a disgrace to the Mishima name, bringing this kind of skill to this tournament," he says, as he delivers one more roundhouse to the temple of the sumo, knocking him out for good. With the first fight won, the second round begins. Heihachi stares on to his second opponent, who is Yoshimitsu, the master swordsman. Heihachi is fully aware of Yoshimitsu's skills from the previous tournament and tries to figure out how he is going to get out of this alive. Yoshimitsu is no one to take lightly, and Yoshimitsu pulls out the blade, his samurai sword, and the sun shines off of it. Yoshimitsu then charges towards Heihachi. Heihachi thinking about a way to get out of this alive. He cannot dodge Yoshimitsu's attacks, for if he successfully dodges the blade the first time, Yoshimitsu will quickly recant, and there's no dodging the second strike. Heihachi also is aware that he cannot disarm Yoshimitsu, for he is way too much of a frickin' veteran for Heihachi to even get close enough to take away that sword. So Heihachi is left with one option, one crazy option. Does he have the skill to pull it off? Does he have the strength? Does he have the muscle math? Heihachi thinks. Yoshimitsu dives into the air, putting the sword above his head, and then Yoshimitsu comes crashing down, flying towards Heihachi. Yoshimitsu swings the blade directly towards the middle of Heihachi's skull. Heihachi looks up, and this is his only chance, his only way of victory. He raises his left arm above his head and catches the blade. The blade slashes into his forearm, but now the blade is lodged. That's frickin' right. Heihachi stopped the samurai blade in full swing with pure muscle in his forearm. Yoshimitsu, stuck in midair, starting to slowly fall towards the ground. Heihachi delivers a straight-up kick directly into Yoshimitsu's crotch. Yoshimitsu lets out a whimper, the first sound Yoshimitsu has ever made. Heihachi then delivers an uppercut directly towards Yoshimitsu, connecting with his jawline. Yoshimitsu does multiple spins and multiple circles from the pure strength and force of the uppercut, letting go of the blade. Yoshimitsu hits the ground hard, and Heihachi pulls the blade out and stabs it into the ground. Heihachi then engages Yoshimitsu in hand-to-hand combat. Yoshimitsu is a master swordsman, but hand-to-hand he stands no chance. He blocks when he can, he dodges when he can, he tries to deliver a strike, but it seems to do no damage to Heihachi. Heihachi now has the upper hand, and when he finally beats Yoshimitsu down enough, he puts Yoshimitsu in a headlock and flexes his muscles and tightens his arms until Yoshimitsu passes out, and now he is officially victorious of round 2, and round 3 shall begin. Onlookers watch in amazement of Heihachi, being reminded of why he is the king of the Iron Fist, though all they see is this beast of a man, the Titan, the king, standing as if nothing can hurt him. But in reality, Heihachi just has experience, and he's able to quickly decide the easiest and fastest way to win a fight with the least amount of damage. With that being said, having to show off and enlist fear using the round 1, he is now tired. His muscles are weakening. Yoshimitsu's slash to his arm did lots of damage. He is dizzy from the loss of blood. His arm throbs, and now he is fully aware that even trying to block with his left arm is going to be near impossible. With all this being said, the third round kicks off with his opponent being no other than King, a professional wrestler, a titan when it comes to muscle math. The pure strength on this guy is incredible. Heihachi has pure strength, but he's also old. He's gotten weaker with age, and though he wrestled with bears, he's not sure how much more strength he has, and he damn well knows he can't use the rest of it on round 3. Dodging King's attacks would be easy, but it would also take a lot of energy and a lot of time to finally wait for King to tire out, especially when King will hold back with every hit he misses. With that being said, time is no longer an ally to Heihachi, for he is losing blood, and he will only be able to go on for so long in this fight. He's fully aware he needs to save his energy and save his strength for the true fight, Kazuha. So Heihachi finally decides the best way to do this is let King put everything he has into every punch, but that means not dodging and not trading blows. He must absorb every strike from King. Now, yes, this will take a lot of energy, but it won't take a lot of time. The match begins. King takes a stance that seems more defensive. This is not ideal for Heihachi. So Heihachi stands his ground, gets his legs ready to just keep himself in one position, opens his arms up, flexes his muscles. "Come on, let me see what you got," he says. And so King charges and delivers a massive front kick. Now this was an incredible chamber kick directly to Heihachi's chest. Heihachi managed to not even move, not even budge, not make a whimper, though it hurt like hell and knocked the wind out of him. He looks at King and uses his hands to signal for more. This is when King was like, alright, this is what you want, you know, like, give me an easy win. So King just starts throwing everything he has, just like Heihachi predicted, into these strikes. One punch after punch after punch after punch. He just is wailing on Heihachi. Onlookers watch as Heihachi's taking massive amounts of damage, massive beatings, and it's getting to the point where you can hear the echo of every punch that's getting delivered to Heihachi's chest, stomach, face, kneecaps, legs, you name it. This guy's getting beat to shit everywhere on his body. However, King's punches are starting to feel weaker and weaker. His strikes are starting to get slower and slower. After 10 minutes, 10 long, torturous, gruesome minutes of Heihachi being a punching bag for the world's greatest pro wrestler, he's finally feeling hardly anything but a tap from King, as King exhausts himself trying to knock over this titan, this brick wall, this tank of a man. So then King does what Heihachi predicted him to do. Without his strikes no longer causing or inflicting any pain, King decides to go for a grapple. He decides to get Heihachi in a headlock and tries to choke out Heihachi. This was the moment Heihachi was waiting for. As King puts everything he has into flexing his muscles, tightening his arms, he is choking Heihachi for as long as he can. Heihachi goes into a deep meditation and meditates with no breath for almost 4 minutes. However, King's grip starts loosening, and finally it loosens to where Heihachi can just stand up. King falls on his knees at the sheer amazement and sheer power of the titan that stands before him. Not realizing that if Heihachi were to try to throw a single punch or take a single step, he would faint and collapse. Not realizing any of that, King is under the impression that he is fighting some type of god and that he cannot even continue. At this point, King is grateful that Heihachi has not thrown a single strike. And with that, King resigns, not realizing the bluff of Heihachi. And Heihachi takes the third round. Finally, he gets a break before having to move on to the final round. He sits upon a log once he's left alone, and he starts whimpering, and he starts throwing up blood, grasping on his broken ribs, rubbing his fractured leg. He's in pain. He can barely breathe. He can barely think. He can barely stand. As he looks into the sky, he wonders, how is he going to successfully win the final round? And even on top of that, how is he going to beat his son? The first man that was strong enough to beat him in a fight, the first man to ever humiliate Heihachi, is the man he will have to fight in this condition. Not only that, Kazuha has the devil gene. As Heihachi looks in the sky, he begins to wonder, is he going to fail? Is he going to lose a second time? Is the age of the King of the Iron Fist over? His break is then cut short, as it is time to start the final round. Using pure desperation and pure will, Heihachi manages to build the strength he needs to stand up off the log and walk to the fighting location. As he stands there, he looks upon a old, frail man, Wang. Wang is an ancient kung fu master. This guy is at least in his hundreds, right? And Heihachi is aware that though he may look weak and frail, it's obvious that he has not received a single punch in this entire tournament. Whoever this Wang guy is has managed to go 3 rounds without ever getting hit. And so Heihachi knows that this guy is an incredible threat and most likely has dedicated his entire life, just like Heihachi has, to martial arts. However, he's at least 40 to 50 years older than Heihachi. Heihachi is aware that he's most likely outmatched when it comes to wit, but even with the beating that he's received, if he can manage to just land 1 strike, then he might actually be able to go home with the round 1. However, Heihachi is not the only one analyzing Wang. Wang stands there analyzing his opponent. He can tell that Heihachi is suffering from broken ribs, fractured leg. He can tell that his arm has lost a lot of blood. He can even tell that Heihachi is struggling to stand, even though there isn't a single shake or movement in his legs. Wang also realizes that Heihachi Mishima's pure will to win overrides any other will, and that his pure ambition is far greater than any other fighter that Wang has ever fought before. These two not only study each other, but in a brief few amount of seconds, they understand each other and actually build a relationship that few people who are not fighters will ever understand. Wang slowly goes into his fighting pose, with his left hand in front, his left foot in front, and his left arm raising, with his hand ever so just dangling freely. Now his right foot is behind him in a more pivot stance, but his right arm is in the same position as his left, but a little bit lower, still dangling his arms. Very weird look, very weird pose. I'm not sure what you're gonna do with flappy wrists, but the guy's a master, so I don't know, I guess we'll figure it out. Heihachi, however, takes a much more brutal stance. He slams his right foot down into the front center, and then brings his right arm up and crossing his elbow alongside his skull with his palm facing outwards, almost like a stance that you would see Vegeta do, right? Very similar. So then he has his left arm behind his back. He does not plan on using his left arm because it's slashed. There's no point. If he blocks with it, it'll hurt like hell. If he strikes with it, it'll hurt like hell. This guy's going to use his forehead, his right arm, and then he's also going to protect his right leg because his right leg's fractured. So he's going to pivot and kick with his left leg and only strike and block with his right arm. And most likely, knowing Heihachi, he's probably going to throw quite a few headbutts in there as well. Now, with all that boring explanation out of the way, these two finally clash. They finally decide to lock in battle. However, this battle is completely different from all the other Tekken battles. Wang, with every strike that Heihachi throws, doesn't overexert himself. All he ever does is just slightly move his shoulder, ever so slightly, and that causes his head to move just enough to where Heihachi will miss every time. And every time Heihachi swings for a massive roundhouse kick using his left leg, Wang is able to block it using the inner side of his palm. His shaky hands become stern every time he blocks a strike, and this goes on for a while. Wang does not, at least once, throw a returning strike. He's only dodging and blocking, and he's blocking in such a way where it's not taking much effort. He's allowing his feet to move with the pressure and force that Heihachi brings, reducing the amount of strength he would need to just full-on stop any kick or punch. Along with that, he's not sweeping and weaving and dipping. Wang is just simply moving his shoulders and his feet just enough to where the location that his head once was is now an empty location every time Heihachi delivers a blow. Heihachi, of course, understands what's going on. He's gone up against traditional kung fu before. And so what Heihachi starts doing is faking his attacks. He'll go for a strike, and Wang will move just a little bit, but then he'll counter his strike and turn a punch into a side karate chop type swipe, right? Or he'll go in for a sweep kick and then turn that sweep kick into a straight up or a axe kick or what have you. And so now we have these two interlocking in these more sophisticated type styles where they are just dancing around each other. Neither one of them hitting each other, neither one of them connecting strikes, but they're dancing around each other in such a fashion to where most onlookers have no idea what's going on. It doesn't even look like they're fighting anymore, because they're not. This is a complete mind game. Each one of them knows that they only have to strike their opponent once. So, each one of them are also aware that their opponent only has to strike themselves once. Meaning, they are doing everything they can to make sure that there's never an opening for themselves to get striked, while waiting for an opening to strike their opponent. Because one hit is all it's gonna take for these old legends that are locked in battle. Heihachi continues the onslaught of non-stop strikes, while Wang is just masterfully dancing and blocking them away. He's managing to avoid every kick that Heihachi throws. Heihachi will go in for a sweep kick and then turn that into a high roundhouse when he sees it being locked. And as soon as it's dodged or blocked, he'll pull his knee back and deliver a side kick, which Wang will easily catch, clasping his two hands together, but allowing himself to step back, not trying to collect all the force, but letting the force push him away, reducing the damage he's receiving in his hands and in his core of the body, right? So Wang finally decides that it is time to start fighting back. However, when he does fight back, these strikes have no power behind them. And the reason why isn't because he doesn't have the power to deliver, but because he knows they're going to be blocked or dodged. And why waste energy on a strike that isn't going to connect? So he's throwing these weak strikes, getting Heihachi to stop the onslaught and focus more on the defensive. However, Heihachi is no fool. He is experienced in multiple tournaments, and he was the champion of the Iron Fist for years. He understands what Kung Fu has to deliver. He understands what these strikes are, so he allows them to just hit him. Now, what this creates is a more intense, much closer to the toes type style of fighting. Because as soon as Wang realizes that his strikes are landing and connecting, and Heihachi isn't falling for his petty techniques, that is when Wang decides, alright, this next one's gonna look weak as hell. And he delivers this punch, and his hands are shaky, and his strike is slow. But then when it delivers and connects to Heihachi's chest, he tightens and flexes his arm, and then at the last moment, he pulls a frickin' Bruce Lee with that, you know, the 1-inch punch, and just delivers a massive blow. And as far as Wang is concerned, this is it, because you only needed one strike to bring this massive titan down. And it does. It knocks the air out of Heihachi. Heihachi wasn't expecting it. This was a cowardly move as far as Heihachi was concerned, and would not be done by a self-respecting martial artist. Wang does not care, though. Wang has motivations that we will not yet find out what they are until we talk about Wang's story. However, with this blow finally connecting to Heihachi and being the first powerhouse blow that Wang has delivered, Heihachi is knocked back, falls on the ground, struggling to breathe, and now he knows it took everything he had to stand up off that log, and now he has to get off the ground after receiving a massive blow. As soon as Wang sees Heihachi getting up, this is when the fight truly begins. Wang then jumps on top of Heihachi, forcing him back down to the ground, and he starts delivering elbows directly to Heihachi's face. Now, Heihachi is blocking it while trying to figure out a way to get out from underneath this crazy old man who was once frail and has now become an ape. He is fighting like a wild animal, slashing, scratching, biting, elbowing, while on top of Heihachi. Heihachi's not sure what to do, so he does the only thing he knows how. He catches one of the strikes from Wang, holding one of his hands. Now, Wang comes in with another strike, and he grabs the other hand. So Heihachi now has a hold of both of Wang's hand, with Wang on top. Heihachi then forces himself up as much as he can, and delivers a massive headbutt directly in the middle of Wang's face, knocking Wang back and finally getting off of Heihachi. As Heihachi stands, Wang also stands. Their one blow knockout was not accurate at all. These two legends now realize what they're dealing with. They each understand that their opponents do not plan to lose just to one weak, pathetic strike. Wang then becomes the style of fighter that he was not before, right? He completely becomes a completely different fighter. He is not the Wang that stepped foot in front of Heihachi just a few moments before. And now, he is in a much more aggressive stance, and he flies towards Heihachi with a speed that shocks the hell out of all the onlookers and shocks the hell out of Heihachi. And he delivers a kick straight point blank directly towards Heihachi's stomach. Now, Heihachi manages to block it, but it causes Heihachi's arm to actually be stunned and numb a little bit. And now, with that first initial strike, Wang does not let up. He does never put that foot down. He just keeps delivering roundhouse kick after roundhouse kick after roundhouse kick without ever letting that foot touch the ground. And with every strike, Heihachi manages to block it. However, while he's blocking it, his arm is losing feeling. His arm's getting number and number as the fight goes on. Now, Wang finally lets his foot down to the ground after hundreds of kicks towards Heihachi's arm, and now Heihachi realizes, shit, he just incapacitated my only good arm. And then, that is when Wang sets his arms up, gets his fists ready, and just starts delivering blow after blow after blow at a ridiculous amount of speed directly towards the chest of Heihachi. Now, Heihachi has dealt with just receiving attacks before, but he's never been this weak, nor has he had to do it after previously doing it, because he had to do this exact same damn thing to King. And so Heihachi realizes that this isn't good, because this is not me showing off. I literally have no choice. This is not a bluff or anything. I have no choice but to let this motherfucker hit me. And so Heihachi is now on the ropes. He's about to lose this battle. And that's when he sees a sweat drop falling down on Wang's forehead. And as soon as that happens, he decides, you know what? My right arm is incapacitated. I can't feel it, but I know it's there. My left arm, I can feel it, and this is gonna hurt like hell. So what he does is first, he brings his left arm and delivers a left hook directly towards Wang. Wang did not expect this. His left arm was not supposed to be able to be usable at this point. Now, the pain that Heihachi feels as he connects with this punch, and the blood just squirts out of his arm because he just reopens that slash wound, right? And so it reopens, blood squirts everywhere, but now Wang has a dislocated jaw. Now, with that being said, Heihachi takes a gamble and delivers a right hook with his right arm. However, Heihachi's not sure where his right arm is or how much power this is gonna do, because he can't feel his right arm. So as soon as he connects, that's when he realizes that he put way too much power behind his right arm. He did a maximum damage strike with his right arm, not expecting his right arm to be as powerful as it was. Connecting with Wang, who had already had a dislocated jaw half a second before, is now falling to the ground with glazed eyes. And Heihachi realizes that this man's no longer breathing. Wang hits the ground. Heihachi stares at him. Now, Heihachi is going to take the win. However, Heihachi begins to panic because Wang did not deserve death. Wang was an honorable and masterful kung fu artist who did what any fighter would do, which is fight to win. So Heihachi instantly gets to the ground and does everything he can, pumping on Wang's chest to get his heart beating again. Now Kazuha is seen in the distance watching this, and anger flows within Kazuha, because how could such an evil, horrible, heartless man be worried about a kung fu master who he had never met, yet so willing to kill his own son? Finally, Heihachi manages to get Wang to breathe. He managed to save Wang's life. And with that, not only did he save a life, but he won a match, and he just deepened the flames for the anger that grows inside of Kazuha, which is his next opponent. As they are waiting for the final round, for the championship round to begin, Heihachi and Kazuha stand, staring into each other's eyes. Kazuha looks at his father, who had tried to kill him almost 18 years ago. Now, as he looks onto Heihachi, he can't help but ask the question, why? Why would you save the life of that old man, but yet try to kill your own 7-year-old son? As Heihachi looks at Kazuha, trying to hold back any emotions that he may feel for his bloodline, he delivers with no emotion whatsoever. Wang did not deserve death. Now, Kazuha, this infuriates him, makes him incredibly angry. What did I do? What would a 7-year-old boy have done to deserve death? Heihachi just simply looks at him in another soulless, emotionless response. You have the devil genes. The blood of Satan himself flows inside you. Do you honestly think that any self-respecting human being would allow his son to become that kind of monster? And with that, Kazuha has had enough and charges towards Heihachi. What I become is only for me to decide, not you, old man. As he tries to deliver a jab and a fatal blow directly towards Heihachi, Heihachi manages to move his head, knowing that his son is no longer focused on martial arts or a fighting style or strategy or skill. Kazuha is enraged by anger. This is Heihachi's only chance to defeat Kazuha before the devil genes once again becomes a threat. So, with the first initial strike missing Heihachi, they are now close enough to where Heihachi can just grab on to Kazuha, and that's exactly what he does. And he forces Kazuha onto the ground and struggles to maintain being on top of Kazuha. As Kazuha struggles trying to throw punches at his father, Heihachi manages to block and force his hands away, and then starts delivering punch after punch, elbow after elbow, headbutt after headbutt directly towards Kazuha while Kazuha's on the ground. This was almost an exact replica of what Heihachi just went through with Wang, almost as if Heihachi has just learned a whole new style of fighting, not giving any care about your opponent, just going in for the kill, because that is what Heihachi must do now. Kazuha is no longer a possible threat. He is a threat. He is a man with the devil genes who is in charge of the world's greatest military weapon dealer organization, and they even have their own armed forces. The devil should not be allowed to rule an army. Kazuha does manage to push Heihachi off with his feet. However, Kazuha is damaged. Heihachi's aware of this. Heihachi needs to get rid of his damage, so he closes his eyes to just not feel the pain that he feels. He closes his eyes, and as Kazuha charges, he uses every ounce of training that he once did. He uses every ounce of meditation, putting his arms in a defensive stance with his eyes closed, just listening and feeling for the strikes that are going to be delivered by Kazuha Mishima. As Heihachi blocks and dodges every strike with his eyes closed, Kazuha's anger grows and grows. The purple aura that once showed 1 year ago begins to show once again. Kazuha becoming faster, stronger, and even angrier, but it makes no difference, as Heihachi still dodges and blocks every attack with his eyes closed. Heihachi has entered into a deep meditation stance, for this is the only way that he may actually survive this final battle with his son. While blocking and dodging this onslaught of attacks from Kazuha, Heihachi manages to deliver a couple jabs directly towards Kazuha's jaw. He manages to connect a few uppercuts to Kazuha's under ribcage, right? And he does manage to kick Kazuha in the kneecap a few times. However, this fight goes at this pace, with Heihachi delivering a strike here and there as he is dodging and blocking the majority of Kazuha's onslaught attacks. This fight lasts for almost 14 minutes. And finally, as soon as he feels and hears Kazuha is starting to try to gasp for air, he's starting to get tired, consistently getting struck and while delivering attacks. This is Heihachi's opening. Heihachi opens his eyes, grabs the back of Kazuha's head, and slams Kazuha's face against Heihachi's knee. And then he brings Heihachi back up with his hair, holding nothing but Kazuha's hair. He starts twirling him around and around and around and around, and now Kazuha is airborne, being flung through the air just by his hair as he screams in agonizing pain. His hair finally gives, hair being torn out of his scalp, and as Kazuha goes flying across the field, Heihachi stands there just holding a fistful of bloodied hair locks. With Kazuha holding the back of his head in pain as he rises, Heihachi charges and delivers a massive kick directly to Kazuha's jawline. Kazuha does fall backwards a little bit, but manages to remain standing up. Then Heihachi, it's his turn, right? And so now he starts throwing punches left and right, directly landing on Kazuha. With every punch Heihachi throws that connects with Kazuha, his left arm just swells in pain. His right arm slowly starts getting feeling back. However, this old man is starting to tire out. There is only so much longer he can do this, right? And so Kazuha is somewhat aware of this, but he's also getting worried that Heihachi has limits that no one ever realized. Whether that was true or not, Heihachi is concerned for his own well-being. So Heihachi decides to finish it, and he sidesteps around Kazuha, getting behind his son, and then he puts him in a reverse headlock where Kazuha's back is bent backwards. Heihachi then delivers a massive knee strike directly to the spinal cord of Kazuha, forcing Kazuha to want to scream, but he can't because he is muffled by the grasp of being bent backwards in a reverse headlock. This is when Heihachi does the iconic neck snap. He crouches low to the ground, wraps his left arm around the tightening of his right arm, as his right arm is holding the neck of Kazuha, and then pulling his shoulder and tightening and pulling back his right arm, he twists Kazuha's neck, and you hear a snap. Heihachi watches the lifeless body of his son fall to the ground as he lets go. He has finally won, but at what cost? As Heihachi walks away, trying to not show any emotion to the public, trying to not show any pain or emotional damage, he walks. He's not even going to hear for his victory to be announced. He is walking directly away in order to get as far away from this horrible, horrible tournament. However, before he realizes it, there is a sharp pain through his shoulder, an incredible sharp pain through his shoulder, and he falls to the ground. As he looks at his shoulder, there is now a hole in his shoulder, spewing out blood. As he looks behind him, that's when he becomes fearful. That is when he realizes that everything he has tried to prevent, he has just caused. The memories of his once loved wife telling him that he would be the man to bring doom and bring the end of the world, he sees his son standing before him as the devil. Purple skin with scaly armor to protect him. This guy is just fucking terrifying to look at. He's got horns sticking out of his head. He's got an eyeball in his forehead. He's got wings sticking out. Incredible wings. He's got like sharp claws. I will show it on the screen. This guy's terrifying to look at, and I'm not doing him any justice by trying to explain it. Covered in fear, but a whole new level of conviction now that he's seen what his son has finally become. The thing that he has dreaded and feared for years now is standing before him. So he stands up, looking at his shoulder, seeing the hole that was created, not knowing exactly how it happened. However, that question gets answered pretty damn fast because Kazuha, using the middle right eye thingy that he has in forehead, the forehead eye that he has, just shoots a freaking laser beam out of it. And it goes flying towards Heihachi, aimed for Heihachi's skull. He manages to dodge it, but now he's freaking terrified. He's like, oh my god. Probably not like that. Heihachi's like a macho man. He's like, oh my god, this is not good. So anyway, this is the final battle between Kazuha and Heihachi. A battle that has honestly been long overdue. It is time for Heihachi Mishima, the self-proclaimed savior of the world, to fight Satan himself. And that's exactly what he does. These two interlock in incredible battle. Even though Heihachi is suffering from fractured bones in his leg and broken ribs and a slashed arm and a concussion most likely, who knows what kind of damage this guy has at this point, he is still receiving blows from now Satan himself while delivering blows directly back. And these guys interlock in an epic battle. However, Heihachi stands no chance. Heihachi gets the floor mopped with him, right? And Kazuha Mishima, who is now in devil form, just kicks the shit out of Heihachi Mishima. The king of the Iron Fist is looked to be like a wimp, a coward, nothing. He is nothing. He's an ant beneath a boot. And the onlookers watch as their once king of the Iron Fist is treated like nothing. So finally, when Heihachi has had enough punishment for one day, Kazuha finally decides to deliver a roundhouse kick, connecting directly with Heihachi, slinging him across the field, slamming him right into a tree with enough force that he actually causes the tree to fall over. Heihachi is out. He is out. And you'd think that this would be the end. You'd think that this would be forever. However, Heihachi stands up once more. However, this time is different. Heihachi has no pupil in his eye. It's just eye white. His eyes are glazed over. His body is leaning. He's not breathing. This guy isn't even conscious. He's not breathing. He can't see. He's completely unconscious, yet he stands. As Kazuha looks at this, he ponders what might be going on, but he doesn't have very long to ponder, for Heihachi then flies towards Kazuha with a speed that Heihachi has never shown ever before, and delivers a punch to the devil Kazuha's stomach with such a force it causes the ground to shake. What kind of power comes from a man who isn't even breathing? What kind of power comes from an unconscious old geezer? Well, this kind of power. Power that can crack the very foundation that you stand on. This is why Heihachi is a threat. Now, why did this not happen in the first tournament when he lost? Well, it's simple. His son was not yet the devil. His son was not yet the threat. But now that Heihachi stands before the salvation and safety of the planet, and his son, who is now Satan himself, now Now his savior instincts are kicking in. He refuses to allow Satan to take over the world because he cannot allow Satan to have an army. And so, being completely unconscious and being driven by will and desire itself, he just sends massive attacks to the devil Kazuha. And with every strike that Heihachi lands and connects with, the ground shakes and the foundation beneath Heihachi's feet cracks with every punch that he throws. And the devil Kazuha cannot handle this. He can't block it. He tries catching one of the punches, and it's as if he just goes through paper. You know, Kazuha's blocks just aren't doing anything at this point. Heihachi's fists are just flying through Kazuha's blocks like they're nothing, connecting with Kazuha. And every time Devil Kazuha tries to send an attack, Heihachi doesn't stop attacking. He will strike Kazuha at the exact same time that he's getting striked, and he won't even budge, just like these hits aren't doing anything. Heihachi has reached a whole new level of power while being in this unconscious state, and it is an exact result of not only willpower and what he sees as his responsibility and his born duty, but it's also a result of his meditation. This guy has reached a whole new level of meditating than any other human being ever has. And so what this creates is almost a godly aura when this guy is no longer conscious, when the mortal desires of Heihachi is no longer there, he reaches a godly presence. Kind of think of it as God Ki from Dragon Ball, right? That's kind of what it is, but you know, way before Dragon Ball Super's time, right? So with that, Devil Kazuha has no chance, and Heihachi manages to beat Devil Kazuha down to the point where Devil Kazuha actually ends up having to reform, and Satan leaves the body of Kazuha, leaving Kazuha as just a body. Now, Kazuha is no longer dead. His neck and everything is healed. He's completely healthy again. However, he has no realization of what just happened. So, all he knew is he was getting his neck snapped, and now, snap, he's just standing there receiving this onslaught of unbelievable power. And finally, when Kazuha gets knocked to the ground and is completely unconscious, that's when Heihachi finally comes back too. And again, Heihachi is not like Devil Kazuha, where when the Satan left his body, he's not able to remember anything. Heihachi remembers all of it somehow. Everything that just happened, he's aware of. He knows what happened. Due to his meditation practices, he was able to at least sense what his body was doing. But now it's time to get rid of this threat once and for all. So, while finally being victorious, Heihachi picks up the body of the once champion Kazuha. Now, Heihachi, as he carries this lifeless, well, seemingly lifeless body up this volcano freaking hill. Yeah, he's carrying Kazuha up a volcano. People watch as the former king of the Iron Fist that managed to claim back his title carries his son to the top of a volcano. And while looking at his son, he drops Kazuha down, just lets him go, throws him into a freaking volcano. Now he's done, you know, he's done. He wins the tournament. He saved the world as far as he's concerned. He beat the Devil Genes. The Devil Genes are no longer a threat as far as he knows, right? And so now we get to a point where we're able to set up Tekken 3, because when Heihachi goes back to the headquarters of the MFE, right? Because it was renamed when Kazuha was in charge of it. It's no longer the MFG, it's the MFE now. And when Heihachi goes back there, he starts seeing all of this research and all this data and all this collections, and he sees that he made an entire army out of the Jack robots, which is a character we'll find out more in the future. However, he's made an entire army with these Jack creatures. Now, Heihachi can use that, but he realized that Kazuha was creating an entire army, like several different branches within the MFE. And so now Heihachi wonders what he can do with this. And so he decides to make his own army, take over this army, not shut it down, take it over. And they start feeding the poor. They start feeding they start providing food and water to third world countries. And this manages to win favor over the public's eye, right? But one of the things that he finds is research and documents that Kazuha found of the ogre. Now, the ogre is this ancient war legend who had ambitions to rule the world. Heihachi was pretty sure that ogre had been dead for some years. However, these documents were saying that there have been sightings of the ogre. Now, if the ogre has risen, would this actually what would this mean for the world, especially since Heihachi just got rid of Satan himself? He just got rid of the devil gene. So what chances do mere mortals have against the ogre, this ancient, amazing creature that once ruled the world and will once rule it again, if he's actually existing, right? So Heihachi starts setting up groups and looking for groups to find the ogre, find proof of the ogre. And now we are set up for Tekken 3. So with Heihachi's storyline in Tekken 3, it's going to be a lot like in Tekken 1, where we don't really mention all the characters, or hardly any of the characters that were in the game, because unlike Tekken 2, he is the Iron Fist champion, meaning he doesn't climb up in ranks. He fights in the very last battle. So there isn't going to be as many characters involved in Tekken 3 as there was in Tekken 2. But unlike Tekken 1, Heihachi is more involved in the story, because he just retrieved the MFE back from his son Kazuha after throwing him into a volcano and killing him, right? It's so overdramatic. But yeah, anyway, so then he decides to organize the Tekken Force. And when he creates his Tekken Force, he uses them and dispatches them to settle disputes and bring wasteland under cultivation to feed the poor countries of the world. And this is all to gain the support of leaders worldwide. Now, there was one day where he sent the Tekken Force on an excursion, and the helicopters that the Tekken Force were in got destroyed by a mysterious being. And Heihachi wonders if this could be the ogre, which is research that his son Kazuha, while Kazuha was in charge, managed to get a hold of and found out that the ogre was alive and roaming. He has resurfaced, right? Over thousands of years, and Heihachi figures if he can actually capture Ogre and use Ogre for his own benefit, then he could actually use the Ogre to stop threats that are just as bad as the Ogre, or just as bad as the devil genes from what he saw in his son, and he could further protect the world. Now, granted, this probably isn't the best way to go, but this is how Heihachi is deciding to handle any possible future threats. Now, one day, like 15 years later, after he won the second King of the Iron Fist tournament, 15 years later, he's visited by Jin Kazama. Now, he learns that Jin was Kazuha's son, and then after Heihachi hears about what happened to his mother, June, which we will learn more when we cover June's story, Heihachi decides to take the boy in. And so now, the grandfather is raising the grandson. And throughout the years, Heihachi spends his days training with Jin by his side. Heihachi, at this point, is refusing to allow the life of business to taint his skills as a fighter and a martial artist again. He's never going to allow that again. And you see that in the third game. He's far much more muscular and much more fit than he was in the first two games. Now, throughout the years, Heihachi starts to notice that the ogre has that he's been hunting reacts to strong souls and decides that he's going to use Jin as a decoy to catch the ogre. So on Jin's 19th year, Heihachi announces the return of the King of the Iron Fist tournament. Now, when the tournament actually kicks off, of course we get all of our iconic Tekken characters that debuted in the first games. Well, we also get a lot of iconic characters that debuted for the very first time in Tekken 3. A lot of characters that have returned in every single game since because of how loved they were. And we will get more into those characters in the future when I'm finally able to cover other characters when I'm done with Heihachi's massive storyline. So, with the tournament kicking off and Jin being a contestant in the tournament, Heihachi watches Jin Kazama fight and win round after round. And he watches how his grandson, yes, fights just like Heihachi, but also fights almost identical to Kazuha. So Jin had martial arts training in the 15 years that he was not with Heihachi. However, Kazuha died around the time that Jin was just a baby, like not even a year old. So this does interest Heihachi a little bit. Now, Jin shows incredible strength and incredible skill and is just a born natural martial artist as he wipes the floor and beats almost every opponent that he goes up against in the King of the Iron Fist tournament. However, when Heihachi watches Jin, he notices that Jin actually shows some of the same signs of having the devil genes that Kazuha showed in the first King of the Iron Fist tournament. And this worries Heihachi Mishima because he doesn't want to have to go through all that again. So having all of these most powerful, strongest fighters collected in one area duking it out, it's having the exact effects that Heihachi was wanting. It's coming up with the same results that he was hoping for, which is having the ogre actually starting to be attracted to the area and actually coming to show up. Now, if Heihachi can just give this a little bit of a push, the ogre will not only show up, but maybe actually stick around and be active long enough for Heihachi to capture the ogre. So, with this being said, Jin is climbing the ranks, and he finally beats his final opponent. So now, due to the tradition that the King of the Iron Fist holds, Jin now can fight the champion, the King of the Iron Fist, which is Heihachi, grandson versus grandfather. Now, Jin absolutely knows that this is going to be a real fight, and that his grandfather is going to fight for his title. However, Jin has no idea what kind of fight he's actually in for, because Heihachi is coming into this going, I am going to put everything I have into this fight and put out as much strength and energy and force you to put out as much strength and energy as possible so that the ogre actually shows up and is around long enough for me to capture him. And so that's exactly what happens. When the championship round actually starts, Jin does start throwing his punches, which are much, much faster than Kazuha ever was, and a little bit stronger than Heihachi's, and his kicks are very, very well rounded. And this guy does not lean more on kicks or punches. He's probably the most balanced fighter in the Tekken series. And so with this being said, he is a challenge for Heihachi. However, Jin isn't going all out the way he was with his other opponents, and Heihachi realizes this. So Heihachi just starts beating the shit out of Jin. He throws punches, elbows, headbutts. He grabs Jin by the shoulders and knees him in the balls, twists the guy around, and then slams Jin's back against his knee, and then just freaking karate chops the guy's throat. And then with Jin on the ground, he's beating the crap out of Jin. So this very quickly becomes a epic, very terrifying fight for Jin. Jin very quickly realizes that he is not just fighting for a title, and he's not fighting his grandfather anymore. He's fighting an opponent that is out to possibly kill him. This becomes a very intense battle, and it is a fight that I really want to cover, because it's just, it's so cool. But if I cover this fight now, I do feel like it'll take away from Jin's story arc when I start talking about Jin. So I am not going to cover this fight right now, at least not in detail. In the end, Heihachi Mishima does end up winning the fight with Kazuha. However, he does notice that the display in strength that Jin shows resembles the same type of strength that Kazuha showed in the first tournament, when Kazuha was just starting to release his Devil Gene abilities. So Heihachi is a little worried at this point. Now, when Heihachi finally beats Jin, that is when the ogre shows up. They displayed enough strength and they showed enough power that the ogre finally shows up, and the ogre wants a piece of Jin. The ogre goes straight for Jin, and Heihachi's like, oh, no, you're not gonna do that. So he goes and gets in between the ogre and Jin, and Heihachi and ogre have this epic battle. Now, you're going up against this old man who is a martial art master versus an ancient being who was known for taking over and ruling the world at one point in time, and no army could beat him. Right, so now you have this epic battle that I can get into. So, with the fight between Heihachi and ogre actually kicking off, oh my goodness, it's amazing. So it takes place in a temple on the top of a hill, and the ogre just roundhouses Heihachi and sends Heihachi flying through several brick walls, and Heihachi ends up in this small little hallway. Now, when Heihachi stands up, he realizes that he has several ribs broken just by that one kick, and went flying through several walls, and ogre just slowly is walking towards Heihachi. Now, Heihachi rushes back to try to fight the ogre. However, every punch that Heihachi throws just bounces off of ogre as if he's made out of rubber, right? These punches are having no effect on ogre. In fact, the ogre doesn't even stop walking, even though Heihachi is punching the crap out of him. And even if a punch connects directly to the ogre's face doesn't move. His neck doesn't get rocked back. This guy just keeps walking. And then the ogre just backhands Heihachi, and Heihachi goes flying back again. And when he gets up, he's dazed, and he actually stumbles a little bit. So it's very clear that the gap between these two are tremendous. It's huge. The power level of ogre is so far beyond Heihachi that it is honestly terrifying, right? However, Heihachi did remember and realize that he opened up a whole new gateway to power when he fought Kazuha in Tekken 2. And when he fought Kazuha in Tekken 2, he ended up getting knocked unconscious, and it created this huge power boost for Heihachi. And it was almost like a holy effect when everything, all his personal gains and all his human thoughts and human desires were no longer a part of him. He became pure, and the purity was the pure instinct to save the world, to be the world's savior, and that is what drove him to open up a whole new gate of power. Now, Heihachi knew that the best way to use it would not to be get knocked unconscious every time. He knew that there had to be a way to access this style, this form, this power without getting knocked unconscious, which is exactly what he worked on for the 19 years between Tekken 2 and Tekken 3. And so that is when you see Heihachi getting his famous electricity that he gains while in Tekken 3. It comes from him just focusing everything he has on clearing his mind, going into as deep of a meditation as he can, and clearing out all human desires and all evil thoughts to become pure. And when that happens, that's when the electricity starts to form around him, because that's just how much power this guy gains because of this weird holy effect that Heihachi seems to have. However, Heihachi can only use it at increments at a time. He can't just keep it forever and use it for a whole fight. It's in short bursts, and Heihachi's aware of this. Now, Heihachi is opening this gate up and using it when he's fighting Ogre from this fourth point on, because he charges at Ogre, and the Ogre is just continuing walking, expecting his punch to have no effect on him once again. However, Heihachi opens up that gate, clears everything from his mind, and then he gets that power boost. And that's when the electricity grows around his fist, and he delivers a massive blow that right to the stomach that actually causes the Ogre to spit up blood, and it knocks the Ogre back. And this is when the true fight finally begins. So, as this fight plays out, Heihachi cannot get hit by the Ogre. However, the Ogre can actually take quite a few hits from Heihachi. So even though Heihachi has unlocked a new form of power and has risen his power level, if I'm allowed to use Dragon Ball's speech here, then the fight still isn't won. The fight still isn't even. Heihachi does not have the upper hand. The odds are still stacked against him, and the Ogre is able to hover off the ground, meaning the Ogre can use his legs to block and attack, and he's able to throw more attacks in this way than any human being is capable of doing. So Heihachi throws multiple punches, and they're just light jabs, but they're using the holy power peak that Heihachi has. And then every time the Ogre delivers a punch or a kick, Heihachi has to dodge it masterfully. And Heihachi is just circling around the Ogre, throwing punch after punch after punch. And every punch that Heihachi throws does cause the temple to shake. It causes dust and debris and crumbles from the ceiling to rain down on them. But the Ogre isn't taking the fight seriously, and Heihachi's aware of this. Heihachi's putting everything he has into every punch, every kick, and though the Ogre does try to dodge some of it, the Ogre is more focused on just trying to punch Heihachi. But Heihachi realizes that the Ogre is able to punch and kick at much faster rate than what he's doing now. And so Heihachi's getting annoyed that the Ogre isn't taking him seriously, right? So that's when Heihachi decides to slam his foot against the ground as hard as he can, using the holy peaked power. And then when the dust and dirt comes flying up, he creates a cloud of dirt. And that's when he just dives through and delivers a very, very powerful karate chop directly to the throat of Ogre. Now this brings Ogre down from hovering into the ground. Now Heihachi's using a lot more than just holy peaked power. He's now putting his life energy into these punches, and that actually delivers a punch strong enough that when he punches the Ogre, it actually causes the Ogre to be stunned. It causes the Ogre to split the skin on his cheek just a little bit. And so now the Ogre is starting to take Heihachi a little bit seriously, and that's not a good thing because now he's delivering strikes at a much, much faster rate. So, with this being said, after just a short amount of time, the Ogre manages to overcome Heihachi, and Heihachi cannot keep up with the strength nor the speed. And that is when Jin manages to wake back up and comes behind the Ogre and hits him so hard in the back of the head that the Ogre has to grab the back of his head and look and what the hell just happened? And he sees Jin Kazuma standing there. And Jin Kazuma is glowing, not purple like his father, but he has a black aura around him. And the Ogre sees this and goes, wow, you're a powerful man. Now I'm not going to go into this battle again. It'll take away from Jin Kazuma's story. But in the end of this, Ogre picks up Jin Kazuma and absorbs him and takes his life force. And this transforms Ogre into what's called True Ogre. And of course, it looks like a giant moth, really. I mean, you'd think it'd be an intimidating thing, but it's like a giant moth with a scorpion tail and wings. And so now Heihachi's trying to figure out, well, what the hell am I going to do now? Because now you're far more powerful than you ever were. So that is when Heihachi decides, I'm not going to fight you like a martial artist. Screw the god power, screw the holy power, screw everything. So Heihachi just runs right up, grabs a brick out of the ground, chucks it, hits a True Ogre in the face, and this blinds True Ogre long enough to where Heihachi can get on top of the True Ogre, grabs onto his horn sticking out of his head, and just starts pulling on him, trying to tear him out. Now Heihachi is getting slashed by the True Ogre's wings, getting stabbed by True Ogre's tail, and getting smashed against the wall as the Ogre's trying to get Heihachi off, but Heihachi does not let up. He just keeps pulling on these freaking horns and is pulling them out and pulling them out, and he finally manages to tear out one of the horns. He flips that son of a bitch upside down and stabs the horn into the Ogre's head. Now this does successfully kill the Ogre, and instead of him being able to capture the Ogre and use the Ogre's DNA to create more of these things that are more submissive to Heihachi, now what you have is just a dead frickin' Ogre. And the Ogre turns into dust, and it actually does allow Jin Kazuma to return. Jin Kazuma just kind of shows up in the dust there. And so on their way out, Heihachi won the title of championship again as he carries Jin out. The helicopters come pick him up. He has to report that he failed to capture the Ogre and that they're going to have to find other ways to create specimens that are strong enough to defeat threats like the Ogre and the Devil Gene. So he is watching Jin as they fly away in the helicopter, and he sees the devil markings show on Jin. And so he picks up Jin, and very sadly, he walks over. And this is the moment, the time where he has to do this over and over again. He has to hold his son or his grandson in his arms and constantly throw them to their imminent death. And that's what he does to Jin. He just drops Jin and lets Jin fall and die. Now, I don't like this. This is sad. It's very, very sad. But that's just how it is. And so, with Heihachi now being the last Mishima alive and still being the owner, he forgets about ever being a grandfather, forgets about ever being a father, and he starts experimenting with genetics. And this is where we go into Tekken 4. Now, I'm not going to cover all of Tekken 4 in this video, but I'm going to cover some of it so that we can actually move on from more than just one game in the next video. I'm hoping to finish off Heihachi's story in the next video because there's not much of him from this point on. And the most exciting part, you could probably tell in my voice, the most exciting parts about Heihachi really are in the first and second game. And his story really just isn't very exciting from Tekken 3 and on. So, at least for me. So he starts experimenting, doing these genetics, and this is when we get things like Mecha Jack and certain amazing aspects of Nina's storyline, and Ray, and Raven is one of them. We get Brian. Brian is an exact result of it, and you also have G-Corp. Now, Heihachi finds out that his son Kazuha was actually abstracted from the volcano, and his body's been being stored at G-Corp. And we will figure out who owns G-Corp in the future. So now Heihachi's goal is to go and capture Kazuha. And so he sends his jacks, his Gear Jack, I think is the name of him now. Hold on, let me look here. Gunjack. Gunjack is his name now in Tekken 3. So yeah, Jack has so many transformations throughout the Tekken franchise, it's hard to keep track of. So he sends all his Gunjacks to go capture Kazuha's body. Well, Kazuha gets reawakened and just destroys all the Gunjacks. And so Heihachi decides to lure Kazuha back to the Iron Fist tournament by telling him that he has his son, Jin Kazuma, and the only way to find him is if he beats him in a fight in the next Iron Fist tournament. Last left off with Heihachi Mishima. He just discovered that his son Kazuha's body was found by the G Corporation and was being contained and held at the G Corporation. So Heihachi sends an army of Gunjacks, to capture the body of Kazuha so that he could extract the Devil Gene. However, Kazuha had been reborn and easily defeated all the Gunjacks. So Heihachi decided to start another Iron Fist tournament to lure Kazuha so that he can extract the Devil Gene. Now, of course this works. Every time he hosts a tournament, Kazuha can't help but join. His passion for fighting, but also his desire to just beat his dad in every way is too much of a driving force for him to not join the tournament. And of course we get all the classic Tekken 4 characters. However, we will not cover any of them today because they are not involved in Heihachi's storyline, not one bit. So, while the fourth Iron Fist tournament is taking place and the world watches the tournament, Heihachi searches for the body of Jin so that he can also take Jin's Devil Gene and extract the Devil Gene and use the Devil Gene to create something in order to have the ability to combat an equal threat like the Ogre or another being who has the Devil Gene, right? Heihachi is actually successful in finding Jin Kazuma's body, and he takes Jin's body to the dojo and ties him up with chains and has him hanging in the dojo. Now, when he returns to the Iron Fist tournament, Kazuha, of course, has managed to win every round and is waiting to take on the champion, Heihachi. Now, this is almost an exact replica of what happened in the first game. You know, Kazuha's fighting so he can beat his dad, and he ends up being victorious. However, instead of being in the middle of a forest, the final battle, the championship battle, is taking place in a ring with tons and tons of people watching. And Heihachi's doing this on purpose. He wants the world to see the Devil Gene or the Devil form for themselves if Kazuha changes. Unbeknownst to him, however, Kazuha does not have the ability to transform into the devil. Not yet, anyway. So, being so close to just now being reborn, he has not developed that kind of strength yet. And so this version of Kazuha is far weaker than what he fought in Tekken 2. So, with the championship round starting, Kazuha does not realize that he is incredibly outmatched by Heihachi this time around. He's expecting it to be just like Tekken 2. However, this is just not the case, because Heihachi not only has grown tremendously in strength, but he has also mastered meditation and mastered the ability to use the holy sense, right? So he's able to tap into that holy sense using meditation and create small pulses of power, of unwhelming power, without having to be unconscious to use it. And so throughout this fight, Kazuha is managing to kick the knees of Heihachi, managing to land blows to Heihachi's chest and stomach, and managing to elbow him in the face. But when Heihachi delivers a blow, every time, like the split second before he actually connects with Kazuha, he unleashes that holy sense, and it just enrages the electricity around his arm and allows a burst of power that Kazuha just cannot handle. And so he beats Kazuha to a pulp. This is a very one-sided battle. Now, the holy sense actually has certain circumstances where it can work and where it cannot work, and we're going to have to delve into that more. But as far as going up against Kazuha goes, the holy sense is just an incredible tool, and it's very effective at beating him down and taking the fight. Now, Kazuha does not get killed in this fight. For a change, Heihachi does not kill his bloodline. He decides to not kill Kazuha outright, and when he allows Kazuha to stand up, Kazuha's very confused, and the first words that come out of Kazuha's mouth are, "What did you do with my son?" And Heihachi tells him, like, "Hey, you want to see your son? Follow me. I'll show you where your son is." And so, hours and hours later, Kazuha has been following Heihachi for hours, and they finally arrive at the dojo. And when Kazuha walks into the dojo, he sees his son being chained up and held in the air, right? From the ceiling of the dojo. And by the time he actually reacts and turns around to ask Heihachi what the hell's going on, these chains come out of the ground and wrap around Kazuha, holding him up in the exact same way as Jin Kazama. Now, with this being said, it only takes so long before Kazuha can escape, while Heihachi Mishima is having a villainous monologue like they always have to do, and is telling Kazuha that there is no way he would bring these two in without having a leash to contain them, and that he needs to extract their genes, not only to cure them from the devil gene so that they could live freely for the rest of their lives, but so that he can create another one of them properly, and can create one of them that he can actually control. And Kazuha does not like the sounds of this. He does not like the fact that one man can use his blood to rule the world. So he manages to break free of the chains. However, this is horribly timed, because this is when Kazuha finally wakes up. So, for reasons that we're going to have to get into when we cover Jin's story, when Kazuha wakes up, not only does he see his grandfather and his father, not knowing that his father was about to be the same type of victim, just standing there looking at him. So he's like, my father and my grandfather have tied me up and are holding me hostage, and I have been dead or passed out or unconscious for God who knows how long, right? And so Jin manages to break free, and the first person he goes after is Kazuha, and he's screaming Kazuha's name. Something happened while Jin was unconscious, and he has incredible anger towards Kazuha, even though he's never met his father. He knows exactly who this guy is. Now, upon reaching Kazuha, Jin does not engage in this epic battle that you would expect from these Tekken characters. However, epic battles are soon to come, do not worry. But Kazuha transforms into his devil form almost immediately, and the tremendous amount of power far outweighs and far overcomes the kind of power that Kazuha showed even when he was in his devil form. And with one smooth roundhouse kick, he just knocks Kazuha the fuck out, and he just goes flying across the dojo, and he's done, son. He is out of the game for good. Game over for Kazuha. Now, Heihachi laughs at this. He finds this very laughable that Kazuha was knocked out so easily. And Heihachi is not worried at all. He has his holy sense, and when he taps into it, he's incredibly powerful, and he has perfected his holy sense even more since Tekken 3. So, in this fight beginning, Heihachi and Jin Kazama finally decide to fight once again, and Heihachi taps into his holy sense, and when he delivers a punch, it has literally no effect on Jin Kazama, and Heihachi is appalled by this, because it was not the fact that Heihachi wasn't strong enough, it was the fact that something was actually stopping his fist from actually causing damage to Jin. So it wasn't a display of strength, it was more of this weird spiritual thing going on. And Jin decides to deliver this a blow, and decides to throw a punch at Heihachi as well right after this, and Jin's punch does no damage to Heihachi. And now they're both really freaking confused, and the game doesn't really go into explaining this. However, the manga does. So, according to the manga and according to the little books that come with the special edition of Tekken 4, is basically an explanation of the holy sense only works on satanic and demonic beings. The holy sense will only beat those who have evil, right? Or are consumed of evil. And when Heihachi's punch does not land, does not strike, and cannot cause any damage, that signifies, that means that Jin Kazuma, yes, he has a devil form, but he also has a holy sense as well. So he is a hybrid of a holy sense beholder, but he's also a hybrid of the devil genes. So he contains the devil form while containing the holy sense. The devil form he got from Kazuha, the holy sense he got from Jun Kazama. And so that is why his devil form looks so much different than Kazuha's devil form. And now these two kind of understand that while Jin is in his devil form, the reason he's so strong is because he's also tapping into holy abilities, holy sense. So while tapping into the holy sense, while also tapping into the devil gene's power, this guy is incredibly powerful, but he can't use it on Heihachi. It does no good. And same for Heihachi. So Jin decides to power down, and Heihachi decides he's gonna have to take this kid out the old-fashioned way and not use any of his holy sense. This fight becomes pretty one-sided from here on out, because the last time Heihachi beat Jin was because he was able to use holy sense effectively. With him not being able to use it at all, and Jin not using his devil form makes no difference, because Jin did not use his devil form in the last fight with Heihachi in Tekken 3. So these two engage in battle, and Heihachi throws a raging elbow that Jin manages to block using a reverse elbow, catching Heihachi's elbow in the palm of his hand. And by flicking his wrist back to where his wrist was pointing to the ground, he flips Heihachi. However, Heihachi does not fall on the back of his head the way you'd expect. In fact, he can manage to flip in the midair, and he delivers a high side kick, which Jin manages to dodge. Now, at first, this is almost identical to the time Heihachi fought Kazuha. Heihachi is remembering his fight with Kazuha because he is throwing straight, strong, solid attacks and straight, solid, strong kicks. However, Kazuha's blocking them in a karate-style chamber block form while delivering returning hits and parrying and counter-striking, while Heihachi is doing the exact same, and it becomes a back-and-forth game, with neither one being able to connect with each other, blocking and dodging each other's hits, while trying to return with a counter-strike, with that also being blocked. So this becomes a mind game on top of who has better training and who has better style. Well, eventually Jin gets sick of it and completely changes format. And now he is ever so slightly moving his shoulders and moving his feet to a way to where he's just ever so slightly moving enough to dodge Heihachi's attacks, with barely having to put any effort into the dodging techniques. He's also blocking using a more loose arm style while catching Heihachi's kicks and punches, but allowing his feet to get moved back to the pressure. Is this sounding at all familiar if you watched part 2? Well, it should be freaking familiar, because this is the same style that Wang used, and Heihachi is really confused by this. How is it and how is it that Jin knows the exact same style as Wang? Where did Jin learn this, right? And this actually starts giving Heihachi horrifying flashbacks, because that was one of his hardest fights, aside from Kazuha. So Heihachi starts pulling his punches because he knows that most of them are going to start missing, and most of them aren't going to inflict any damage, so there's no point in wasting energy on punching air. And as soon as he starts doing this, that is when Kazuha starts mixing the Heihachi Mishima's karate style with Wang's traditional kung fu, and this creates a fighting style that Heihachi cannot defend against and cannot fight against. And so so many names. Jin Kazuma starts taking the advantage, and the fight starts going in his favor, because he's fighting with this perfect combination of the Mishima Zaibatsu karate form with Wang's traditional kung fu. And so he eventually does get the upper hand on Heihachi, and as soon as Heihachi is weak enough, Kazuha just chamber kicks the hell out of this guy right in the chest, and he delivers 2 of them back to back. He jumps in the air and sends 1 kick forward, and then sends the second kick forward right after, delivering 2 massive chamber kicks to Heihachi. And while Heihachi is staggering, this guy takes a kung fu stance, puts his left hand right up against Heihachi, and he's using his left arm to aim perfectly, and he gets his left arm hooked up, and he activates not the Holy Sense, because the Holy Sense delivers a blue type lightning or electricity, but he delivers a different type of power. He delivers a different type of energy. He's collecting a red electric energy in his fist. Heihachi's never seen this before, nor have we, and we will not find out what it is until we cover Jin's storyline. And he delivers a massive punch directly to Heihachi, sending Heihachi flying. And the force of this punch is so great that Jin's feet actually goes into the ground. Now, with this, Heihachi is beaten, and Jin Kazuma goes back to his devil form. He has full control over the devil form, unlike his father Kazuha, and he flies away. Well, Heihachi is down for the count, and as he starts to wake up, Kazuha also is starting to wake up. And this is the last time that Heihachi sees Jin Kazuma. This is the last time that these two cross paths. And now we get to kick off Tekken 5 and go into the Tekken 5. Now, somebody sends an army of gunjacks. And it's not Jin, it's not Kazuha, it's not Heihachi, but it's someone else. And they send an army of gunjacks to eradicate Heihachi and Kazuha. And as they surround Heihachi and Kazuha in the dojo, Heihachi and Kazuha have to finally team up. And it's father and son back to back fighting this army of gunjacks. And they're doing okay for themselves. They're doing a good job until Kazuha decides to abandon Heihachi. And Heihachi gets outnumbered. And then all the gunjacks decide to self-destruct, blowing up the entire dojo with Heihachi in it. And so now everyone is pretty sure that Heihachi has just died. He's a dead man. And Heihachi's father, Jinpachi, is the one that took over the King of the Iron Fist. And he is now ruler of the MFE. Now, that whole saga, the Jinpachi saga, is going to be a big part of Jin Kazuma's storyline. But with Heihachi, it's not as part of his storyline at all. In fact, he's sidelined for all of Tekken 5. He wakes up just a little bit, but it's right after the Tekken 5 events and the Tekken 5 tournament. And so anyway, he wakes up and he awakens to find out that Jin has taken over the MFE. This angers him, and he decides to go and retrieve it back because he is the rightful owner, the rightful head of the MFE. On the way there, he meets a new character named Raven. Now, when Raven sees him, he's like, "Hey, I thought you died like months ago or a year ago." And Heihachi's like, "No, an explosion can't freaking kill me. I'm the King of the Iron Fist, you dunce," right? And so, for reasons that Heihachi does not know, and reasons that we'll have to find out in the future, Raven does start fighting Heihachi. However, their fight is cut short. So, right as they were actually starting their battle, Raven gets called back to headquarters because of the outbreak of World War III started by Jin. And with this new information, Heihachi has to figure out who the hell this Ray guy is, and what headquarters is, and what organization Ray works for. But also, he's like, Jin started World War III, so I'm gonna lie low, and that's exactly what he does. He lies low in a new dojo that he just purchased, and he spends the duration of Tekken 6 just training. So, yeah, his saga does not continue in Tekken 6. In fact, he is sidelined again for the sagas and events of Tekken 6, which we will have to cover with the main characters of that game. However, he does have a small encounter with Lars, a new main character in Tekken 6, and there is a little bit of a fight going on, but when he's caught in the middle of training, Lars starts talking to Heihachi about all the events that are going down, and he informs Heihachi that the world's in the middle of World War III, which was started by Jin, and there is a huge major threat called the Azazel, and it is very similar to Ogre. Now this confirms Heihachi's fears and confirms his will to create something using the devil genes that can be strong enough to combat these weird creatures, these strong, incredible otherworld entities, and to try to protect the world. So his savior instincts do kick in a little bit, so he kicks his training up even more after sending Lars off. And he does learn while talking to Lars that Kazuha is starting to take a much bigger part in this world war as well. And so both his sons are gaining power quite incredibly, but that is honestly as much as we have with Heihachi Mishima's storyline in Tekken 6. And the reason for that is because Tekken 6 is when they started no longer incorporating the Iron Fist tournament as their canon story. The Iron Fist tournament still is a thing in Tekken, just so that players have the arcade to enjoy, and they still have the ending story scenes, but they're no longer canon. For some characters, like the side characters, they were canon, but for the most part, as far as main characters go, the ending of the arcade is no longer canon storyline. Instead, they start going through a different type of story mode. And so the story mode itself is what's canon in Tekken 6 instead of the arcade. And this is where Heihachi's storyline continues in Tekken 6. And so now we kick off with Tekken 7, the final installment of Tekken to this date, to the date of my recording this video. And so Heihachi hears that Jin sacrificed himself to defeat Azazel, and he decides it's time to take back MFE, right? And so that's exactly what he does. He marches in to the MFE, and he just dominates the Tekken Force soldiers. I mean, they shoot freaking rockets at this guy, and his training has been so efficient that he just kicks them away and punches these rockets away, and he just destroys every single Tekken Force. He fights his way all the way up to the top room where he meets Nina. Now, of course, Nina has been around since the first game, and so we're going to have to cover her storyline in the future since we are almost done with Heihachi's storyline. But anyway, Nina, as a final defender, decides to take on Heihachi, and Heihachi does manage to beat her because she's a very skilled, very incredible fighter, but she's not quite at the same level as the people who attain Holy Sense or Devil Genes. So with that being the case, Nina becomes Heihachi's right-hand woman, and Heihachi begins to rebuild the image of the MFE, because they just finished World War III, and Heihachi is an incredible spokesperson. He knows how to win the favor of the people, and he knows how to gain the trust of leaders. And so he starts incorporating everything he incorporated in Tekken 6, making the Tekken Force handle disputes and feed the poor and take care of third world countries. And this does start gaining the favor of Heihachi. Now Heihachi decides that it is finally time for the world to make up their own decision about the devil genes. And this is a huge story arc development for Heihachi. He has decided that it is no longer his choice to decide what is and what is not a danger or a threat for the world, but it's time for the world to decide. So, in this time, this uncertain time that no one else would ever even think of doing, he decides to announce the final Iron Fist tournament. And he's doing this with the intentions of having Kazuha join, just like he always has, and showing the world his devil genes, because Heihachi's pretty sure now that Kazuha has been reborn long enough to where the devil genes have resurfaced, and he wants to show the world Kazuha's devil form. So, with the Iron Fist tournament on the way and kicking off, Kazuha does not join. And this throws Heihachi off, but Kazuha does not join the Iron Fist tournament. So he decides to change strategy. Though he does not stop the Iron Fist tournament, he lets those side characters have the spotlight, which is very exciting. I can't wait for Tekken 7 whenever I cover these guys' stories, because they'll be the most exciting story arcs of every character. Literally every character just peaks at Tekken. So, having to start a new strategy and start a new plan, Heihachi goes to the Archers of the Sairas, and this is so that he can create an alliance with them. And when he meets the leader Claudio Serafino, he tries to discuss with them that they have the same goal to eradicate evil, because Claudio is an exorcist and he has the holy sense. And when Heihachi explains that he also has the holy sense, Claudio does not believe him and tries to fight him using his holy sense. Of course, Claudio cannot land a punch on Heihachi because the holy sense just won't allow it. And so, of course, Claudio accepts, and he accepts the alliance, and he becomes Heihachi's left-hand man on the second in command to Nina. Then, Nina actually finds sightings of Jin Kazama and is ordered to send a search party for his capture. However, nothing actually comes out of this. So, Heihachi is then attacked by this mysterious man who is incredibly powerful. Heihachi was in the middle of meditating in his dojo, and this guy just comes in and says that he is here to avenge Kakami. And so Heihachi is shocked. He's like, how the hell do you know that name? Because this guy just mentioned the name of his wife. And so they engage in battle, because the only answer that this guy would give Heihachi is that he is the man with the fists who have no equal. And Heihachi takes that challenge and just starts fighting this guy. And for the most part, they are pretty equal. However, this guy too has a type of energy that Heihachi has not noticed before, has never experienced before. But his holy energy does work on this guy, meaning he does have evil intent, and he is not using any style of the holy sense. So the first part of this battle is really just them feeling each other out, doing low kicks and testing out certain techniques to force the other opponent to either defend or fight, and they're getting a feel for each other. But even though this is a test, their punches are causing shockwaves through the dojo. These guys, especially Heihachi, has reached a whole new level of power, which is forcing all the other Tekken players to also increase their power, because that's what Tekken is all about, are these guys trying to keep up with each other and not only get better than their opponent, but get better than themselves. So in the middle of this fight, they are both attacked by a Jack 6 army sent by Kazuha, right? And so these two end up having to team up back to back and take on these Jacks. And unlike how Kazuha abandoned Heihachi, this guy with the fists who have no equal stays with Heihachi, and they manage to defeat every single Jack 6 combatant. And so now they are just back to being themselves, just the two of them. And that is when it is revealed that this mysterious man's name is Akuma, and he is a fighter who's been around for a very, very, very long time, and his connections with Kakami is the mere fact that he was assigned to protect her. And when he woke up, which we're gonna have to get into when we cover his character, when he woke up, he realized that she was gone. So he must avenge her instead of protect her. And that's exactly what he sets out to do. And so they go into another battle. However, Akuma powers up. And this is like the first time we've actually seen a traditional form of powering up in the Tekken series. And so far, I'm pretty sure Akuma is one of the very few characters who are capable of doing it. And so he powers up and becomes just this tremendously strong guy. And Heihachi doesn't stand a chance. He tries to fight back, but he just can't. Every punch is unblockable, and every strike is too fast to dodge. And Heihachi is outmatched, and Akuma delivers a hand palm strike directly to Heihachi's chest, knocking Heihachi down, breathless. Akuma takes this as Heihachi being killed, and so he leaves for his next target, which is Kazuha. Now, Heihachi takes advantage of the fact that Kazuha thinks he's dead and goes back to the headquarters. And this is when he calls upon a journalist, and this journalist comes up and he tells the journalist his life story. Everything from before the first Tekken, through first Tekken, Tekken 2, Tekken 3, all the way up to this point. He tells the journalist everything, and then tells him to release it to the world so that the world knows the truth and can make the decision that they deem fit. Right after this, Heihachi meditates one last time, and then he goes to his headquarters in the MFE and makes a local worldwide broadcast telling Kazuha to meet him at the mouth of the volcano. Now, of course, Kazuha knows exactly what volcano Heihachi is talking about, and he knows exactly what's about to happen. So he meets his father, the one that has tormented his life, the one that has tried to kill him over and over and over again. He meets Heihachi, and the two stare at each other at the mouth of the volcano. And it is finally time for the last battle. It is time to put all of this to rest and end it once and for all. And that is where we're gonna leave Heihachi's storyline off. This is such a climactic battle and such a peak performance of everyone involved in Tekken 7 that I cannot finish it or talk about it, this battle especially, until I'm actually ready to stop talking about Tekken itself. Since Heihachi is the first guy that I decided to cover in his storyline, finishing it off with one of the biggest climaxes in history and the biggest climax that Tekken 7 has would just be unfair to myself, because nothing else would come to compare when it comes to Tekken. And since this climax involves another character, I will have another chance to talk about it. So that is, for now, the end of Heihachi's storyline in the Tekken saga, and I will finish it with this climax when the time has come. So, with that being said, that is today's video. And real quick, if there are any Tekken fans watching, let me know in the comments the next character you would like me to cover. I might cover that character, I may have to wait, but let me know what character you would love to have me cover, and I would gladly cover it. I don't actually see a whole lot of Tekken content out there, so yeah, with that being said, thank you very much for watching. Please do consider hitting the like and subscribe button and share. It helps me out a lot. I'm a very small channel. And yeah, don't get hit by a meteor. Take care of yourselves. Bye.